All right, troops, welcome to the Action League. My name is Owen. Hello, J-Man, Stephen, and Sean. How are you this evening?
Good. All right. Yeah.
I'm coming off of a cold, so I've got my weird voice on, and I'm not trying to be an elitist, no pun intended, but I am drinking tea. So I'm not trying to be like I'm above everybody, but just to help get my voice back to normal.
Pretend you're British.
Yeah, with my pinky up. It's on Rambo.
Is Rambo. Elitist or is the Iron Fist mug elitist?
Yeah, it's the Iron Fist. Yes. Yeah. It's all green today. Green Lantern.
Oh yeah, I got my Jaws t-shirt on. So John, you're in there. So can you hear us and you're part of the stream and everything?
Yes, I can hear you guys.
Excellent. Good. Alrighty. Well, tonight we're going to be paying tribute to, well, it was pretty much the greatest action hero of all time, John Rambo himself, from what is probably my favorite action franchise, or certainly way up there anyway. And for once, I actually want to start off with Stephen, because Stephen a few years ago wrote something on the site, which is still there. You can check it out. And it's Rocky versus Rambo, the American Dream versus the American Nightmare. So can you, for those who don't know about it, can you just give us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that was actually the first article I ever wrote for you, like on Ivor's site. I used to do video ones, but this one was about, like Stallone really, and I don't think anyone noticed this, he made two iconic characters, but like in the exact opposite direction. Rocky is all about the American dream, the underdog. He's no one, and he gets a once in a lifetime shot at the heavyweight champion, and takes him a couple movies, but he gets on top and etc. And he builds his career from that. And I'm not going to talk about Rocky obviously in this thing, but like Rambo is the exact opposite. It's the American nightmare. It's basically this man gave his life for his country, and he comes home and he doesn't. There's no hero's welcome. All that he got as a thank you for what he did for his country is a bunch of dead comrades and a heavy duty dose of PTSD. It's literally uncanny how Stallone has managed to make these two characters, and they're both the exact opposite. First Blood is definitely, I would almost not even say it's an action movie. Like I feel it's very much a drama as much as it is an action movie. There are action elements of it, but it's basically about this guy who basically comes back, and instead of getting the hero's welcome, which he probably deserves for his service and for his country, he's basically treated literally like a vagrant. Like, I think the sheriff character says, like, how much money do you have on you? He's like, whatever. He's like, you're a vagrant. And he tries to get him out of town. And that's ludicrous. This is not how this man should be treated. And it's just like, if this is how we're going to treat our heroes, then why would you even go to war for these folks? Like, he's not, he comes back, his life is arguably worse. So that was more so what the article was about saying, how like it's shocking if you actually watch the Rocky movies, you're very uplifted, and then you watch the Rambo movies and you're very depressed.
I would agree with that, yeah. Although, I think maybe Rambo First Blood Part 2 and in Rambo 3, you got more of the hell yeah whenever he's like doing shit of everything. But like the first one and then the later ones, which we'll get to, definitely. First of all, wow, that's the first comment we have here. Hello from Egypt. Oh, hello Egypt. That's awesome. That's so cool whenever you see people from like the other side of the world commenting on things. That is awesome. Yeah. And any love for Rambo Force of Freedom? Yes, we're going to talk about that at the end.
Sean loves that one. That's guaranteed.
Oh yeah, don't worry. We'll be getting to that, and then
we'll get to comments. Them. We'll get to them, man. We'll get to them.
Oh, you got it. Nice. So yeah.
Oh no, that's not that. Sean got that through different means. That's not.
No. These are official.
They're official. Oh, okay.
6 volumes that make up the entire series. Yeah.
Trying to find where my volumes.
What are you trying to do here?
Nothing to see here. FBI. Nothing to see.
I've lost my mind. My mind hasn't healed yet.
Yeah. Well, before you pass out, J-Man, then what is your thoughts on First Blood?
Oh, I love First Blood. I didn't see it first, despite it being part 1 and it being called first. I think I saw Rambo 2 first, then Rambo 3. Then I saw Rambo 1, and I was under the impression, as a kid, I liked the cartoon. I had the toys as well. When we get to that, we'll get to it. But I was under the impression that Rambo 2 was Rambo 1. I don't know, and I don't know why I thought that. Like, I know the title is telling you, but I just kind of thought that, like, that story was part 1. And then I saw First Blood, and I was blown away. I was like, wow, this is, like, fantastic. It is the best movie for sure. When people think of what Rambo means, they usually think of what he really means in part 2 and 3, you know, but they're not thinking about First Blood, which is, like, quite a different movie than the other ones. And yeah, I definitely noticed the Rocky Rambo, both our names, 5 letters, right? Like, it's like you've got that one name, you know, recognition. I love First Blood. I think it's a perfect movie. I think it's a masterpiece. It's genius. Like, I love the ending. Someone in the comments was saying the ending gets me. Yeah, it does. Like, you know, you don't just turn it off, that whole thing. You asked me, I didn't ask you. I like that line a lot. And I didn't really know too much about, like, the war and all that stuff. And I didn't really know, like, about, you know, Vietnam and protesting and all that. Like, I'm watching these as, like, action movies, so I didn't really get what was going on. And when I got the DVD set and the Blu-ray set, you know, whatever, the commentary where they're talking about the sheriff. I just lost the actors. Brian Dennehy.
Oh,
Brian Dennehy. They're saying that there's a lot of hints that he was a Korean War veteran.
That's in the book.
He was.
Yeah, and I never picked up on that as a thing, right? And even if I did pick up on that, I wouldn't have really realized what that meant. Like, I totally did not understand what his problem was. Like, I didn't, because, you know, I'm Canadian. I think most of us are Canadian here, and I don't know anything about politics or war, so I didn't get any of those references, like, where they're like, oh, you know, you're just here, like, you know, we don't want you around here. I'm like, what is this guy's problem? So for me, it was almost more like, because I didn't understand where any of the other characters were coming from. I'm totally with Rambo the whole way. I'm like, you know, F this town. These guys are a bunch of bullshit. This is bullshit. And he's like, I could have killed them all. I'm like, yeah, like, you know, what's your problem? You know, I was totally with him because I just didn't understand, you know, the context of that movie. So I loved it. I think it's great. And even now, understanding the context of it, it just adds complexity, you know, it adds more layers to the movie, knowing sort of like what it was trying to say. But even without that, I just thought it was awesome anyways. Like, this is like a kid watch. I was like, this is kick ass. Like, I wanted that knife. Like, you know, you start to imagine, like, oh man, I'm in the forest with them, and what am I going to do? And you're like, you know, Home Alone, you know, screw that kid. Rambo would have taken care of business.
Well, he does that in Last Blood.
He does, which we're going to get to. That's why I said that. It's like, it comes full circle. Goes back
that he does. Yeah. Do you know that Kirk Douglas was nearly Troutman? And I was watching all the behind-the-scenes stuff on the Blu-ray, and he was very nearly, but he kept sort of changing the script back and forth because I think he wanted to go for the ending of the book, you know, killing Rambo off at the end, and then there'd been no sequels. Which, you know, I mean, they tried that, and they tried it with test audiences, and they were like, no, because by the end of the movie, you're totally on Rambo's side. You don't want to see him die. That would be just defeat the whole purpose of everything, and, you know, people would have hated the movie. So I'm glad they changed it. It maybe worked better for the book. I have read the book years ago, but I
just read the book the past 2 weeks, so it's pretty fresh in my mind. But like, it's interesting you say that because in the book, Troutman basically puts him down like a dog, right? And in the movie, in the alternate scene, he shoots himself, right? So he ends it himself.
That's right. Yeah. So, John, can you hear me? What are your thoughts on First Blood? I know we've discussed this before last year, but see if you can bring some new insight to it.
Yeah, we did. I watched all 4. I didn't get a chance to watch number 5, but that's okay because I think I watched it like a couple weeks ago. But I watched the first one with my wife, and she hadn't seen it before. And the biggest thing is, like she was saying, how she's like, wow, he's a dick, and I'm like, yeah, he is. They all are. But I didn't think Teasel was that as bad as Gold. Gold, I wanted when he fell out of the helicopter. I'm sorry, but I was just like, oh, I was like no sweat there. But here's one thing I want to add, Owen, because we did talk about this last year. Richard Crenna, Colonel Trautman is like Rambo's biggest cheerleader, if you think about it, because like when he comes in, it's like the lines they have him say. It's not just this movie; it's like every movie. It's like Trautman basically peps him up to the God didn't make Rambo. I made him, He would eat things that would make a Billy go puke, to kill. Period. And he was like his biggest cheerleader. And I remember watching it the other night. And I just started laughing. And my wife's like, "What are you laughing at?" I'm like, he needs pom poms because he's like patting himself on the back like, I made this guy. This is my creation. He's like, you guys are all fucked because this is what I did.
I actually think Trautman is like the biggest villain in the movie because he's so, to your point, John, he's so gleefully admits what he's done. He's created this monster, and he's unapologetic about it. And it's almost like he's trying to close Pandora's box at this time, but like you don't really feel like he's just kind of like. There's a cold detachment, and Crenna played it perfectly. There's a cold detachment to how he looks at this, right? Like, it's more so that, like, when Rambo's doing this, he's kind of, like, embarrassed because he's like, oh, my God, this is not going to look good for, the country or the military forces or me personally because I'm the guy who created him. You don't really feel like he gives a damn about Rambo until maybe the very, 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 very end, but a lot of it through there, he's just sort of like narrating how screwed they are facing off against Rambo. It's crazy. I don't know if Crenna gets a lot of credit for the performance he put into it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he was perfectly cast. It's funny how. Sorry, a delay. You go on, John.
So basically, like what I was saying, like it's kind of like a one-sided relationship because, like you're saying, Stephen, he looks at Rambo as this thing that he created, where Rambo looks at him like a father. So it's like I don't think it's mutual, at least at first. Now, when you go through the two movies, he's like, oh yeah, this is my boy, But when it started out, he was like, no, it was a totally one-sided relationship, and Rambo. Because he was like, he's the only person that Rambo trusted, But, Trautman, that wasn't the case with him at all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And has anybody ever...
I'm surprised how close... Sorry. Huh? I'm surprised how close this is to the book.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was going to say, because after reading the book now, I'm like, my God, this movie is the book. I mean, they take out the Batcave sequence and everything, and there's a lot of violence. Like he kills about 15 or more people in the book, right? But the whole business of Trautman being proud of him is totally from the book, and even small moments like the one cop that's almost gonna fire into the crowd to get at Rambo, and then he's stopped by Teasel. That's from the book. All sorts of small moments like that. And the book adds a lot of layers to things. So like you totally get into Rambo's head and everything. And it's funny that David Morrell insisted on writing the novelizations for 2 and 3, even though like Rambo dies in this one. He just wanted to control the character, right?
Yeah.
And add the layers from part 1 into those books as well. But yeah, no, part 1, I just like J-Man, I saw it late, like probably after I saw part 2, and in that time, I feel like 1985 to 1988 was the big heyday for Rambo. It's like cartoons and toys and like the big wheel bike that you could shoot a Nerf missile out of, all that crazy stuff. It was the big heyday, and that's about the time I saw part 1. Nowadays, seeing how they treat Rambo in that seems even more weird because of course Vietnam was the turning point. After that, soldiers could do no wrong, right? Like you dare not offend them or say anything bad about the military or anything. So in that movie, when he's walking around with the flag and like a military coat, And Teasel's like, you shouldn't be walking around with that. It's like, why? What's the problem?
Mm-hmm.
It's a different time, right? It just feels weird now watching it. But yeah, no, like First Blood is the best one. I love the part where he's hiding behind a tree and the helicopter is going from one side of the screen to the other.
Yeah,
it's so cinematic. It's amazing. Like watching it now, right? But yeah, I don't know. I mean, they toned down the violence so as to make Rambo more of a hero, and also they amped up the cops beating him and stuff because they don't in the book. Yeah. In the book, he does act out, and you kind of don't. I mean, you can see his side because you're internalizing because it's a book and they can narrate what he's thinking, but on its face, he's an asshole in the book. So, and even at the end, he's thinking like, you know what, like I can say that I kill these people for strategic advantage and all that, and they're in the way, but it's bullshit because I killed people. Like he understands what he did. But in the movie, they're trying to. Well, I mean, it's a movie for people in theaters, so they're trying to get people to root for Rambo. So tone down his violence, ramp up the police brutality, and you got your Rambo movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Has anybody ever eaten anything that would make a billy goat puke? I don't know. I don't think so. I was like, I would love to know what that is, but
like what would that be? Yeah,
yeah.
They eat like grass with like poo on it and stuff. Like,
yeah, sheep shit or something.
They can like.
What does everyone think is the most iconic moment from that movie? For me, it's him coming out of mud and holding the knife to Dennehy's neck and saying,
"Don't push it,
call it off, or I'll give you a war you won't believe," sort of thing. To me, that's that movie, like him coming out of the muck and being dangerous and holding it to Dennehy. But I'm curious to see what everyone else thinks of this iconic moment.
That is definitely probably the most iconic moment. Don't push it, or I'll give you a war you won't believe, because that was quoted for years, and everybody would say that. But just while I remember, one of my favorite scenes in the movie is actually the bar scene between Troutman and Teasel after they think they've killed Rambo. And Teasel comes in after you're sort of like, this guy's an asshole, fuck this guy, or whatever. And then he comes in, he's like, look, if I was a little harsh earlier, I'm sorry. The guy could just got under my skin or whatever. And that was the thing, is that Teasel wasn't evil. He was just, an asshole. And like, because he was a Korean War vet in the book, then there's that sort of bitterness that the Vietnam War got more coverage really than the Korean War, and that he felt like he fought for nothing really, if I remember correctly. Is that right, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, it's mainly that they lost Vietnam. It's like that's the biggest. It's the highest profile loss for America, and gave America a black eye, right? So, and there's a lot of resentment from everyone, including veterans who are like, "Well, we did it better," kind of thing.
That's right. Yeah. Back to Stephen's question. What do you think is the most iconic scene? Do you think it is the don't push it scene?
Probably.
I think it's the ending. To be honest, is like, who doesn't quote that, right? It's over, Johnny. And his whole speech is like, nothing's over. It's like, come on.
I always quote that. I'm always like, it's over, Johnny. When you say that at work too, it's like, it's over, Johnny. It's over.
I don't think people give Stallone enough respect for his performance, like actually as an actor. Like yes, the later movies maybe could become a bit of a cartoon, but in this one, I mean, like, he's got PTSD. He's the anguish and just everything he does, like particularly at the end when he's talking about, being spat on at the airport and things like that, just returning from war. And your heart breaks for him when he's just down on his knees crying. And it's a fantastic performance. I think he was so good. I mean, to me, First Blood is a perfect movie. There is like nothing wrong with First Blood. When I was watching it the other day, I was like, this is easily the best of the franchise. As I said, it's not my favorite, but it is the best film in terms of performance and everything else. And like I said, it's hard to picture anybody but Stallone playing Rambo. I see one of the comments here from Douglas J. Browning. Sorry, Douglas, I see you've been commenting. And he says, heard somewhere that Quentin Tarantino wants to do a Rambo reboot closer to the novel. Tarantino always says that. He said that about Casino Royale and everything else. Shut up, Tarantino. Get back to making 6-hour movies.
There's going to be an Indian Rambo remake.
But Sean pointed out that would be pointless because if you did the book and Rambo literally killed all these people, because then you're like, look, these are small town cops who are trying to do their job. See, the only one that got really killed was Galt, because he was a piece of crap who was going above and beyond what he was doing as a law keeper, as a peacekeeper. He was like enjoying it and being sadistic, and he kind of died through his own stupidity too. If Rambo slaughters all these people, you're just kind of like, the guy just killed a bunch of people. Like, sorry, like I can't really get behind them. You know, maybe today they could.
It's like if you're reading a book, it makes sense, but like you have to tell a story visually. So visually, they're like, let's make them beat Rambo, and then you're sympathize with Rambo, right? I mean, you can say that they're making a film. You know, they're making a visual film. They can't have him whisper talking like freaking like that that Chuck Norris movie. You know, where
the Octagon,
like internalizing his thoughts constantly. You know. Like that would make no sense. Yeah, I don't know. I got cut off in I don't know if you heard. There's an Indian Rambo remake. It's supposed to come out last year. But
Tiger
it's
Shroff.
either this year or next year with Tiger Shroff. Yeah.
Oh wow.
He's got the body and the hair, but he's definitely got the hair. It's big like this. But,
I think that fell through. I think something happened, and it wasn't going to happen because it was supposed to come out a couple of years ago. And then it didn't happen.
It's supposed to be last year, but they got hit hard with COVID.
Yeah.
So, you know.
But like First Blood sort of triggered a whole host of movies, like the First Blood Part 2 did, which we'll get to in a second. But there's a trilogy that this movie created. I don't know if anybody's seen it. The Thunder Warrior trilogy, or Thunder. And this is something which I would love to actually see remade. But it's like a Native American guy, and he's been picked on by a sheriff and whatever, except it's played by Mark Gordon, I think his name was, who is Italian. It's like an Italian ripoff, basically. And I was like, okay, but, you know, I would actually love a remake where you actually get a Native American to play the character, because particularly with everything in the news now, it could be very timely. And like the movies weren't great, but if you look up Thunder or Thunder Warrior, the poster, I used to have the poster, greatest poster ever. Like the guy's like quite a skinny guy, but the poster is massive muscles and this huge gun and everything, you know, like they did with all these movies in the 80s. It was quality. Absolutely loved it. Actually, Douglas Browning says here, she also wanted to mention Jerry Goldsmith's music.
I was actually going to ask that. Like the song at the end is so good.
I had no idea it was based on a song with lyrics until like years and years. Even after having watched it as a kid, you turn it off when that stupid song is like, it's a long road.
That song is epic.
Yeah, it came from this awesome thing. Huh. Yeah.
Like when I go out for a walk at lunchtime at work, I'll listen to that and then I pretend I'm Rambo walking along the street. It's a long road. And I go back into the office and then I cry.
They're going to say killed for vagrancy on your thing. It's like, war hero killed for vagrancy.
I said that this morning, Owen. You know what I'm talking about. It was a long day. It was a long road this morning. So
it's hard as hell.
It was funny because it had been a few years since I had watched First Blood. When I watched it the other day, I noticed that Switek from Miami Vice is in. I don't know who's familiar, but Michael Talbot from I was like, it's Switek. I was like, oh my god, because Miami Vice is like my favorite TV show of all time. So just seeing him and it was so cool. And then of course you have Horatio Caine himself as well, David Caruso in it too.
Like I was just gonna say that because he's such. It's funny because he's such a skinny, like geeky kind of guy.
Yeah.
And then it's like, then it's funny to see how he transformed. Like when he did CSI Miami, he thought he was like the greatest actor in the world. You know, it's just like to see him in this role. It's hysterical because he's like, can't you guys see this guy's crazy? And I just started laughing. I'm like, I wonder if he watches this movie. And he's like,
you're just waiting for, but that's what happens when two worlds collide. Yeah!
I used to love that part of the show.
That was the best part, and then they stopped doing it. It's like the best part of CSI. I think they wanted to get more sort of serious after that, and I was like, no, CSI Miami was good because of Horatio putting on his sunglasses and being cool and saying something awesome. So, I don't know. But... yeah, it's funny how Rambo became so sort of misunderstood. Like, I guess in the later movies, there's lots of killing and everything, but in First Blood, like we said, he doesn't kill anybody. He's just defending himself. He maims just to injure people so they don't kill him.
But he's not in a theater of war. That's why.
No, exactly.
Yeah. But in the book, he brings the theater of war to the town, which is the point. But no one wanted to see that, I guess. So.
Oh well, yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Well, no, honestly, all the people he attacks in the woods, like all the people after him in First Blood, in the movie, they look like they die or they're gonna die. And he's like, "I didn't kill him." It's like, well, what about the guy that has like the mega spikes in his stomach, or the dude with the thing around his neck that's being sliced? I mean, but they say, oh, like they're just injured. They'll be okay.
I think that went in his groin. It looked like it was. Like
I thought so too.
When he screaming, I was like, I was like, oh my god. My wife was like, oh my god, did that go in his groin?
Right between the boys.
Rambo's very precise in his traps. He knows
this one will be between the boys, and these will be the hips. All right.
Yeah, he knows the size of the person that's going to fall into it and all that. He knows.
You could literally have a drinking game for the movie, though. For any time somebody shouts out "Will," you're like, "Well." That's all you hear for like most of the movie, and you'd be wasted within like 10 minutes. But yeah, I mean, it's awesome. It's funny. Severio says here, which isn't a silly comment at all. He says, "I really like the backdrop of the movie with the forest and mountains, along with the weather. It really adds to the movie for me. It does, because that's almost Rambo's greatest challenge, is dealing with the weather and the terrain and wearing that crappy sheet which he puts on, whatever, and then having to stay in the caves, the mine. Love all that stuff. It just adds to the challenge. That's how he says. I'll see. Seen Thunder Warrior. Stars the guy from the Bronx Warriors. Yeah.
Oh, I have the Bronx Warriors.
Yeah. Mark Gordon, isn't that his name?
I know who you're talking about now.
I think Mark Gordon was his name. Yeah.
Yeah.
Art Gold doesn't get enough credit. Dude took a header right off the pocket. Fuck Art Gold. He deserved it. Throw him off again. He deserved it a few times. Yeah. So we'll move on to my favorite entry of the franchise is First Blood Part 2, which to me is probably one of the most iconic action movies ever made, because I love basically that last 35 minutes whenever he becomes with a one-man army action hero. He created the action hero in that movie. Yeah. Basically, the template was there, and that's where we got so many movies. As where was it? Somebody said all the various comments. Yeah. Any thoughts about some of the nutbar rip-offs like Strike Commando, Red Scorpion, things like that? There would be all these movies after. Red Scorpion was awesome. Yeah. But yeah, the music for Part 2 is my favorite as well, because it has the best scene in the entire franchise. And you know what it is, don't you? Everybody knows what it is. Murdoch, I'm coming to get you. And then it's just the greatest 35 minutes in cinema history. And I'm like, Citizen Kane, sit down. Rambo's in charge. So, and then it's got the music and everything, and it's just America kicking ass. And I'm not even American, and I'm like,
well, not even does he say that line. He's like, Murdoch, I'm coming to get you. But not, he clenches his fist, and you hear his muscles and his
knuckles crack.
And then the lightning hits as soon as he says it, like right on his face. You're like, that's effect right there. You can't do better than that.
I think it really happened. I think there was actually lightning then, because God smiled upon him and said, "This is such an iconic moment that we need some real thunder here."
Did you read the intro for the novelization of Part 2? Because David Morrell didn't want to write the book, and producers kept talking him into it because he's the only one that can because of his contract. And they're like, "You gotta write this. This movie will be huge. You want to be associated with it." And they told him that this movie will be huge. So he's like, "Whatever." They FedExed him a videotape. And the videotape was the helicopter scene, and it's like, and he's describing is like he's blowing stuff up, and there's no music yet, and then the music starts ramping up. He's blowing more stuff up. Then he lands the helicopter, gets out, gets a machine gun, and blows more stuff up. And he ran to the kitchen where his wife was getting the kids ready for school. He's like, "This movie's gonna be huge," and he started writing the book. But yeah, that scene will convince anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, whenever I was watching the behind the scenes stuff, which I've been going over the past week, and how they're saying whenever they're writing it that they wanted it basically to be wish fulfillment for the Vietnam vets, where it's like, okay, do we get to win this time? So, and they do get to win this time, and that's why it's so sort of triumphant. But in an earlier draft, and I didn't know this until I watched this the other day, initially John Travolta was going to be in it, and it was going to be this like buddy kind of thing with the two of them. I would have watched that. That would have been cool.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I think
He's
that's the
gonna be
James
the
Cameron version.
comedic sidekick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he would, yeah. You'd just be like, oh, geez, he's going to kill everybody again. And that's probably all he would have said.
Up your nose is over holes. Yeah.
Then he does it again.
But also, like, nobody goes, "Hoo!" the way Rambo does or Stallone does whenever he's fighting. Anytime he's fighting, he's like, "Hoo, hoo, hoo." And I'm just like, I wish I could do that whenever I fight. It was amazing. So, who just disappeared there? Who's gone?
Sean.
What
Sean's
happened?
gone to like practice his.
He's going to go, "Hoo."
Come back stronger.
Yeah.
Okay,
There it is. There.
can I
Sorry,
say-
Sean, I must have punched you out of the feed.
I don't know what happened. Yeah.
I also wanted to say, like, the one scene that's the same in all of them is there's always the scene where he's stalking the enemy, and here it's amplified because we were talking about it in the first film. He's doing it with the police officers, but he's not doing it to kill them. He's like, I could have killed them, but he's just doing it to hurt them because he knows, even though he's in that zone, he's in that mode, he still knows that, hey, this is the enemy, but this isn't the enemy. But now in Rambo First Blood Part 2, he's doing the exact same thing with the Spetsnaz soldiers, but this time it's like full on. He's stalking them and he's totally taking them out. He's stabbing them, he's shooting them with arrows and everything. And then in the third one, this exact same thing when they do it. I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself. We haven't talked about the third one yet, but it's like that scene is always in the movies where he's like this lying in wait, and these guys don't know what's hitting them. And the funniest part, do you guys remember when the one Russian's coming up the mud, and I think he trips him with like the bamboo, and he's like, the look on his face, he's like,
And it doesn't make a sound. Yeah.
yeah. And this is like a tough Russian Spetsnaz. This is the best that they have, and he's crying like a baby. He's because he knows what's happening, and you just see Rambo come up and grab him by the neck and take his knife out. But it's like, I just wanted to say that, like, yeah, this scene, it's like it's the same scene as the first one, but it's this is war. And like these are the bad guys. I'm killing them all this time. So it's like, plus it means something to him because it's about the vets. So it's all about. So it comes home about the whole Vietnam thing. So he's like these guys are in my way of getting these guys out. So now it's like he totally turns the tables, and that's why I love this scene in the second one even better.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I love when he comes out of the mud. You don't even see him, and his eye opens.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a good scene. But then, like, Murdoch himself, people say that Teasel is the best villain. Maybe Teasel is, but I hate Murdoch the most because, oh god, I'm like, whenever he like leaves Rambo and the POWs behind. I mean, I was always like, what are you doing? They're right there. Don't leave them. Don't leave them. And every time you're still like, you bastard. And yeah, I hate Murdoch, but he's a great character.
Charles Napier, again, a great character actor who did like several films. And again, doesn't get the credit I think he deserves for his long and very solid career. He played heavies a lot. He could play, but he could play, the good guy. But like that movie, basically, when I think of Charles Napier's career, that's what I think of. Like, is him as Murdoch. When I wrote the article, cheap plug, for First Blood versus Rambo 2. On the Action Elite, I actually gave the edge to the sequel because I think it gave us what the first one did, plus gave us so much more. You still had that whole theme of his country's turned on him, and Murdoch's a sleazebag, and he's going to turn on him. Just like when they say, "Oh, it's for reconnaissance," you're like, "Oh yeah." He's going to find them and then he's going to save them, right? Like there's no big secrets. But I love the story arc with the girl where he's like, oh, I can build a new life, right? Like I can go away with her and just do that. And then she's dead. And you're like,
and the most unintentionally funny scene.
Guys immediately.
I always laugh at that scene. He says, "Oh, you take me with you. I come with you to America." Yeah, okay, we'll come back. Well, I guess not.
No time to waste, man.
He's barely finished the sentence before she's filled with lead. You're like, oh, you're done. But
I think we got the Expendables from that.
But did you notice?
We got the Expendables from that.
Rambo.
Did you notice? Did you notice though the only reason why he didn't get shot is because he went back to go get his bows and his bow and arrow because he started walking with her and he went back to go get him and that's when they opened up fire and I was like, damn, Rambo would have got shot if he had just kept walking.
Yeah.
I think that's like a subtle. It's a subtle thing. Remember, to survive a war, you have to become more.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like as long as he's doing what he's made to do, chip away the pieces, whatever. Then he's invincible. He's only vulnerable when he's not at war, and I think that's like the big running theme. It's like
in Gremlins 2, Gizmo learned that. This is the movie he watched, and then he got the bandana, and then he quotes that. They actually like call back to that line, like you have to become war. It's like and they're like, what happened to Gizmo? He watched First Blood Part 2. That's why I watched Part 2. This is Part 2 is the movie when someone says Rambo. That's what they think of.
Yes, that's what we're talking about.
Well, and I've got an interesting thing to say about 3 when we get to that. But yeah, that's what 2 is. It's got the Expendables scene, which is great. Just talking about what expendable means and all that, and all of the action and everything. I think it's this is one of these franchises where even last week where like I kind of like every movie, to be honest. So it's going to be a lot of just like, oh, that was great, you know. But like Part 2 is a cool movie. That was the one that I watched the most.
Yeah,
same.
It's sort of the one that I thought, well, this is obviously the best one.
Yeah.
And then I saw Part 1 and got a new appreciation, for it after. But like Rambo 2 is the movie. Like, as I tried to show my friend Rambo, he never watched. There's a mutual friend who has never watched any Rambo movie. This is like 15.
Why is he your friend?
Yeah. So we like Star Trek and all that. So I was like, you haven't seen Rambo? He's like, no, it's just Stallone going around shooting everybody, not getting hurt. I'm like, I think you're thinking about like 2 and 3. I said, but First Blood really isn't that. And then he watched First Blood, he was blown away. And then he's like, well, now I got to watch the other ones. And he's like, well, now the other ones are just cool to watch or whatever.
Yeah.
But he does get hurt in all of them. Like, I mean, he's always swing his arm up and things like that in all of them. So.
2 is awesome, but it gets into the cartoonery a bit.
Right. This is what
and then 3 becomes full bore. Like 3 is awesome. I love 3.
I love 3.
And it's probably my favorite one, but 3 is super duper I thought 3 was a film version of the cartoon.
Kind of is. Yeah.
Turbo and Cat and all that, but still, yeah.
Anyway. Yeah. What was I wanted to say about 2? Yeah, you got Martin Cove in Part 2, and Martin Cove was awesome.
He made it back.
But 2 is definitely the one that's most rewatchable. I mean, 2 is the one I've watched the most. The one I watched the least is 1 because I get so upset watching the first one because I hate Teasel so much or whatever else. It's like it's not fun, like Rambo 2 and 3 are just silly, sort of fun. Really, 2, so you still got the Vietnam vet thing and everything, and I wish our country would love us the way we love it. And I love all that. And actually, a few months ago, I got to speak to Frank Stallone, and we talked about him recording the music he sings the final song at the end, which is quite cool. So that was quite awesome. But 2 definitely is that's my favorite one, the one I watched the most. But now moving on, Rambo 3. Oh wait, hold on, John's about to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to go back to what Stephen was saying, like, what's the most iconic moment? And for me, in Rambo First Blood Part 2, it's the end when it's all quiet and, like, he had just stolen the helicopter and then the Russians and the Vietnamese are at the camp and you just hear the chopper sound and all of a sudden you just see the chopper in the sun and it's just coming at you and it's like what's coming next. And then he just starts going through everything and there's no music, right? And he's just blowing stuff up. They're trying to shoot, but they can't do anything. And then he lets out that scream, and then the music starts. And that's when you just feel like you just gained 250 pounds of muscle yourself, and you're just like watching this. I think that's like that shot of the chopper coming in from the sun. That's like the best thing.
And then, of course, Stephen Burkoff. Is always great as a villain, and then I'm sorry, I can't remember the actor's name, but the guy is in Lionheart / AWOL. He's the guy who he fights with. The guy. I think he was Mustafa, and I think it was. So that's awesome. But But also, one of the things I was finding out on that documentary was that how the final showdown between the two helicopters was supposed to be like a spaghetti western showdown, where it's like a standoff for the two helicopters, and he pretends to be dead, and then blows up the helicopter, which is so awesome.
Did you notice that the crack in the windshield was exactly there for him to shoot that rocket through it?
Yeah,
that was really handy that happened. Yeah. Oh, that's a fun fact. Frank Stallone cleans my pool. Same.
We have that in common.
Yeah. So yeah, but yeah. So Rambo 3, I've really grown to appreciate over the years more because it has the best action of the franchise. Like the sheer scale of it and the size of the action. Like that finale, where you got the helicopters and tanks. I was like, this is awesome. You just don't see movies like this anymore. And yeah, I just think it's awesome. Real sense of scale. You got the opening with the stick fight, which is great, and I liked how this one has the most hand-to-hand combat maybe of the whole series. You got that amazing final fight scene at the end with maybe my favorite kill of the franchise, with the guy getting hung with the grenade and then
easy. That's easily the best.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so amazing. I think this one has the least interesting villain of the franchise, though. Like, I couldn't even tell you what's his name.
I can't remember.
I can't remember. Who cares? He's the villain.
They had a lot of brave Afghanistan soldiers, though. That we thanked at the end.
I saw this at close to 9/11, and when I saw that, I'm like, wow.
How times change.
Yeah, I mean, they split it off into various groups, including Al Qaeda, right? It's complicated, but it's not exactly that he was training Al Qaeda in that movie, which I think a lot of people turn to. Is like this and was it Living Daylights?
Living Daylights,
two movies that glorify Afghanistan during the Cold War. Yeah, and I think they're around the same year, I think, or something. Yeah.
Well, I think it's like they're so against Russia that
I think Living Daylights is 89, maybe.
It's like yeah, we're against anyone. No, we're friends with anyone who's against Russia.
Yeah.
Regardless of what the reasons are.
Then we're with them.
Russia, we're with you, right? So that was the
yeah, they were sort of the big
kudos to Stallone. He did this in 4. Kudos to him at least trying to pick something to be like, okay, Rambo, because Rambo's done.
Yeah.
Like Rambo 3 is the same as Halloween 4. It's the same as Friday 13th Part 5. It's the same as Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Rocky 3. It's these movies where if this movie wasn't around, we would not be talking about this franchise anymore. Because like a lot of these things conclude, like Part 1, very sad. Part 2, he concludes it. He saves the POWs. He's got to win. It's over. It's
his war is over. He even says that.
It's technically over. So now what do, right? Friday 13th Part 4, the final chapter, it's over. Jason's dead. Oh shit, right? So if you don't make these next movies, there is no franchise. So Rambo 3 is that pivotal moment. Now what do we do with this guy? We want to do a Rambo movie. It's like Planet of the Apes 3, right? Planet of the Apes 2, the world's destroyed. Well, it's over, right? So there's certain movies and franchises where this is the movie where it turns. This is the one. Because now he's fighting other people's battles. It's like whenever we need Rambo, we call him in to come help us out. And that's the continuing thing until Last Blood, I guess. But it's like, so it's an important movie. Like and it's a kick-ass action movie. So, I mean, whatever. Like, I know some people don't like it. And there's a character in Sleepaway Camp Part 3 that quotes this as his favorite film of all time because it makes America look good. And he's like, Rambo Part 3. and then he gets his arms ripped off by Angela in Sleepaway Camp 3. But in any case, before that happened, he liked Rambo 3 a lot. So the stick fighting is cool too. And he rescues Troutman. There's a lot of cool stuff in there.
I'm just going to come out and say it though, right? Nobody said this. Is it just me, or is Troutman a bit shit? I mean, like he gets kidnapped within the first few seconds, and he never actually helps at all. He's always there, like, yeah, Rambo's going to kick your ass, but you know what I'm going to do? Not a goddamn thing. I'm just going to stand here and be a smart ass, and and he never actually does anything. And then in this one, he just gets kidnapped. You're like, it's time to retire, Troutman. Go away because you suck.
I think that speaks though to the fact that Troutman made these guys, but he didn't actually do what they did, right? Like he was the controller. He was the guy in the control room, basically planning out the missions. It's like sort of like having your manager. it's kind of like having your manager do your job. They're going to do terrible at it because that's not what they do. They deploy the guys in that. Like him going out there, as soon as they're like, oh, Troutman went out there, I'm like, well, he's going to get captured in 1 second. Like this guy struck me as like the overseer, like the strategist, not the guy to actually execute. Like it was just, yeah.
Do you think maybe he is related to Gino Felino then from Out for Justice, seeing as they both wear a beret? Maybe it's his dad or his Uncle Troutman.
Yeah, I was going to say he's his uncle or something.
Troutman's a user. We used to call these guys users when we were kids. You show up here, oh, I need your help. Yo, where was that Christmas card last year? What about the year before that? You didn't do shit. And all of a sudden you show up, oh, you chip away the pieces and we didn't make you. It's like, well, you kind of did. And it's like, I don't know. I like Troutman. He's all right. He's a cool character, but like, he's kind of a dick.
Yeah.
It's like, in the beginning, in the first one, we couldn't care less about Rambo. He's like, well, I made Rambo. It's all me. Yep. It's like, it's all me. And then he needs Rambo's help. It's like, oh, I need your help. I'm like, dude, Rambo should just be like, look, man, I'm stick fighting. Like, leave me alone.
Yeah. I'm going to stick this up your ass if you come here.
I'm carrying those big wheels and repairing monks' vehicles and stuff. Like,
being manly and maintaining my hair.
Yeah.
So just leave him to it. Yeah.
You gotta wonder, Rambo's there. It's like, I'm stick fighting. Like, why are you bugging me? Like, why are you coming back again with another mission?
It's like you just want to. They just want to kill him. Is that what it is?
Yeah. There was an article somewhere on the internet. I remember J-Man, you showed me it, where this guy was like, "How did America lose Vietnam? They had Braddock, they had Rambo, they had the A-Team, they had it's like almost every character in the 80s that was badass was like a Vietnam vet." And but it's overkill if you got all those characters to fight the war. It's like Rambo single-handedly destroying whole bases and stuff, and has a kill count of 67, and they can't even kill him. So if you had 20 Rambos, you could probably clear house.
Well, they did. Well, Rambo was the best of the unit, but there was a bunch of these guys. And their mission was kill, period, right?
Yeah.
These guys could have killed 50% of the population of Vietnam on their own. It's like, I don't understand. Literally Rambo can kill every person on the planet by himself in one go. And you had Braddock, you had all these other guys there. You're like, dude, you got this in the bag.
I can tell you what it was. It's the generals were no good. Look at Marlon Brando and Apocalypse Now. He's a lunatic. Right, and Troutman, he's useless. So, that's why the guys in charge were sucked. The soldiers were fine.
Well, I like the Hot Shots Part 2 version of 3, where it's he's dipping he's dipping his fist in the big M&Ms and the caramel and stuff. And at one point, he picks up a bunch of bullets, just throws it at guys, and they're like, "Oh!" It's great, man.
Hot Shots is awesome.
Those are fun.
But I mean. You wouldn't even have a missing in action trilogy without Rambo once again. I mean, that's a huge thing. So that will definitely be a future trilogy we'll discuss. Will be missing in action at some point, maybe in a few weeks. That'll be a good time.
I always thought it was the poor man's Rambo, but I still loved it.
I mean,
as a kid, you could tell it's just another Rambo. He's just trying to be Rambo, right?
Mm-hmm. But he comes out of the water in slow motion, so
yes,
that's the epic. So
you watch Spider-Man cartoons apparently too.
The movie takes place before the other. It's so weird. The missing in action.
Well, it's because they're shysters and they only finished part 2 first, and then
I know. It's just weird. It's just such a weird thing.
Yeah.
It's been a few years since I've watched them, so I got to give them a. I always remember that I really liked 3. I think I really enjoyed part 3. I liked all of them, but and 2 was good as well. So we'll definitely do a little revisit of that soon. So, John, you're quiet. Are you trying to speak or?
No, you guys I'm just listening to you guys. You guys are great. But going back, everybody's talking about how Troutman's a big play. He's got the best line, and I think this is the best line we can describe Rambo in the whole franchise. The Russian comes up to me. He's like, one man against trained commandos. Who do you think this man is? God? And he's like, no, God will have mercy. He won't. But here's the thing, and going back to that, it's like everybody, like when Charles Napier, when Murdoch like abandons Rambo, and they all think, oh yeah, he's not coming back. It's like Troutman's in on this inside joke. He could just look at the expressions on his face. He's like he knows Rambo's gonna come back. He knows he's gonna come back and kill everybody, and then come back to the base and everything. And the best part is like when he's talking to him, and then he says. He's like, he never had a chance, did he? He's like you said, Colonel, he went home. He's like, Troutman knows that he's coming back. It's like he's in on the worst secret ever, or the worst joke ever. And but going back to Rambo 3, I just love the prison scene. Like when he breaks Troutman out. That's the best firefight scene out of probably the whole franchise for me. When the kid comes down the stairs and he thinks it's somebody, but then the guard comes down, he throws it in, and he just picks up the AK-47, and it's just like it's like cool Rambo postures throughout the whole scene. Then he's got the kid slung over his shoulder, and he's shooting the AK with one hand, and he turns around and shoots again, and then he pops out of the water. When you pop out of the water with a machine gun, Chuck Norris ripped it off in Missing in Action. It's like you gotta pop out of the water. It's like you look cool shooting a machine gun.
But then also, like, Rambo himself has a couple of choice lines in this, like, "Who are you? I'm your worst nightmare." I would love to say that to somebody. I'd love to say that at work.
He had a sense of humor because Trout was like, "How you doing, John?" He's like, "Well done."
Well done. Yeah.
He's
becoming a jokey action hero in this one.
Yeah, in this one, it's very much. This is the cartoon one where it's just it's just a pure balls out 80s action movie, and that's kind of why I love it. It's just great fun. I mean, there's no real depth. So you got this thing about Afghanistan, whatever, and Rambo coming full circle, which really he doesn't do until the fourth movie. But anyway, but it's funny how in this one, it even ends with like some humor, and the tone is much lighter. And he's like, I think we're getting soft, John. He's like, yeah, I think we are. And then the tone changed by the time you get to Rambo 2008, and I was like, what happened to him between those movies? Because he got pissed.
Well, at the end, before the last fight in Rambo 3, it's like total 80s action hero. He's like, what do you say, John? He opens up the great elector and he's like, fuck him, and he closes it. It's like that. Yeah, he's like, that's like the best thing ever. It's like it's total 80s bullshit, but you know what? You still watch it to this day. So,
and I still miss it. Yeah, but I also love the has that great, like, what's this? It's a blue light. What does it do? Goes blue. This just has the.
I like when they're playing the game with the sheep. He's like, well, why do you throw it there? Because there's a circle. He's like, oh, okay. He's like,
that's all we need. Yeah. It's funny that there isn't an entry in this franchise that I hate. Like, I love all of them. I know some dislike Last Blood, but I will discuss that shortly. And also like there's like a whole bunch of other movies that weren't made, which I'll get into as well. One thing I wanted to say about 3 is that we got Clarence Boddicker in here. You got Kurtwood Smith as well. Although he kind of just is only in it for a few minutes, it's still cool. I mean, he'll always be Clarence to me, even no matter how many shows he does or anything else. I'm always waiting for say, "Can you fly, Bobby?" Or something like that.
Can you
my fucking phone call. Yeah.
You burnt the fucking money. I had to close the door. What do you want? Spanish marketing, asshole, you stupid asshole. I know that entire movie. I'm not gonna.
When he was the dad on that 70s show, I'm like, what is going on?
You're waiting for the wife to come. You're waiting for the wife to come, and he's like, "Bitches, leave." Oh, he was so good. And like, to me, well, just on a random note, Clarence Boddicker to me is the best villain of the 80s. There, I've said it. He terrified me when I was a kid.
I hated him.
Oh, he was God, he's a monster. Just scared the shit out of me as a kid.
I hated him so much.
Man, Even like when they book him, he just spits blood on the book. He's like, just give me my fucking phone call. I'm like, what the hell, man? You're arrested. You're done.
Well,
he just doesn't care.
Owen, he has the right to be the best villain in the 80s just before what he does to the hero. I mean, that's probably the worst villain killing the good guy in a movie ever. You know, they blow his arms off and everything with a shotgun.
Oh, yeah. It's so cruel. Yeah. Yeah, we'll definitely do a RoboCop retrospective as well because there's so much to talk about there. We'll do that soon. But sorry, just get on some of these. Where was it? Yeah, I remember almost nothing about Rambo 3 except for the opening stick fight. I need to watch it again pronto. You do, Severo, because I'm the same. There is something strangely forgettable about the third movie. It's the one I think about the least. But then when I watch it, I'm like, oh man, this is awesome. I forgot how good it is. So yeah, I'll definitely check that out again. Hot Shots Part 2 is the best Rambo tribute. Agreed. Yeah.
Or UHF.
Right. Yeah. And more than the Giggler. Yeah, the Giggler is good, but yeah, Clarence all the way. Sorry, there was a comment up here that Badri Bali said hello from Egypt. Hello again. He says, my ranking is First Blood, Rambo, First Blood Part 2, Rambo 3, and Last Blood. I don't even know if I can rank them, to be honest.
It's hard.
Last Blood is a decent action film, but didn't work as a Rambo film for me. Yeah, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that,
yeah. So moving on to Rambo 2008. Now, what was interesting about this one is that there's two different versions of the film. Yeah. You have Rambo and then you have John Rambo. Has everybody seen both versions? Yeah. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. The John Rambo version, it's this is one of the rare occasions where I prefer the theatrical version. I think the theatrical version is the much better version. The version of John Rambo, it's actually got less violence in it. It's not quite as intense. And like there's a scene where the guy is doing the prayer instead, but in the theatrical version, he's like, you know what you're made of. Killing's as easy as breathing, and he's making the knife, and that works so much better filmically. But I think it's an awesome movie, though, Rambo 2008, and for me, I'm just going to say that is really where it should have ended. The way the film ended was perfect. He comes home, he's gone full circle. We didn't really need another movie after it. As much as I enjoy Last Blood, if they didn't make another Rambo film after 2008, I wouldn't have had a problem with it. But what I like about this is Rambo is a very different character. He's almost more like the Rambo from the first movie, The First Blood, because his whole fuck the world. I mean, that's my spirit animal right there. That's what I say every day. So I like how he's just so angry and antisocial. You can barely even be civil to him. And even when Julie Benz is like, please come and help us go on our stupid mission to get kidnapped. And he's like, no. But yeah, so anyway, I'm going to shut up. I'm going to let you guys go on. So Sean, your thoughts on Rambo 2008?
Rambo 2008 was a sigh of relief for me because unlike other people revisiting their franchises, I thought this one like nailed it completely and showed that Stallone understood, like between this and Rocky Balboa, it's like he understood what made those work. Owen, you probably remember this, and everyone else on the panel where Stallone was going to make that science fiction part 4 where
Savage Hunt.
Yeah, he fights genetically engineered like living embodiment of war or something like that.
Yeah, a terrible idea.
Yeah, it's based on a book. I've never read it, but it's a book I don't think it's a David Morrell book. I think it's just a random book he liked. But this was way better. And I like the conceit of it where Stallone said it's time to show what these weapons really do in real life. And people might think, oh, it's badass and stuff, but it is like it will rip through you, like bullets will rip through you and take limbs off and stuff and burst you into goo. That's what they do. You don't just get hit. And they show a lot of that, and I loved it for it. And I forgot about every time I watch it, I forget about the other dudes, like the mercenaries. I like some of them; they're cool. Even the asshole guy that keeps like yapping away, and then at the end, I'm like, oh, I like this guy though. And
the bald guy, Graham McTavish, just trying to remember the actor's name.
And I like the sniper dude; he's cool too.
Yeah.
I like all that. I like the basic sort of message of it, where it's like all these bleeding heart liberals think they could change the world, and it's like they're sitting on their couch in their nice, rent controlled apartment or something like that, and they're like, we can change the world, and the world isn't like them, and they don't understand. You can't just you're not going to tell that caterpillar mustache guy that why don't you do better? He's not going to change his ways all of a sudden. It's like it's like the world isn't your world, and you can't really go in and change everything. It's not nihilistic and it's not downbeat. It's just the truth. It's all
realistic.
I like. This movie was awesome. It's so amazing that he can revisit something like this years later and it's still on point. It's great.
I remember the first time I saw it in the theater. It had been a long time since I'd watched a Rambo movie, and I remember I went to see it with Ed, and we were really quite shocked. And I don't remember the Rambo films being this graphic before. And in the theatrical version, the opening scene is that horrific scene where they're throwing the mines, and again the people run over the mines or they then shoot them, and it's like a horrifying scene. And then in the John Rambo version, that scene is a little bit into it, and then it's got a different opening. But it's definitely the most shocking movie, well, up until Last Blood, but it was the most disturbing Rambo film to date, where, as you said, it's about the threat of the violence, where it really captures how horrifying the violence is, the damage landmines do and shit like that, and just the cruelty that people can do. But definitely really dark. And then you've got Brian Tyler doing the music this time as well, who he recaptures Jerry Goldsmith version, but he gives it an almost sort of sadness to it. He adds that adagio theme, the music which plays over the end, and it just gives sadness back to it, which the first movie had, and sort of really captures the sort of somber tone of it, like the forlorn warrior. Anyway, shut up, Owen. God, let other people talk. J-Man, go.
Well, I saw it twice in the theater, so I loved it. Same as Sean said. I couldn't believe that it was as good as it was, because to me the three movies were pretty much near a perfect. I know the third one's cartoony, but I like it.
Same.
And then I'm like, okay, part 4. This is gonna turn to shit, right? And I'm like, no, man, this is so good. And then I'm starting to think, crap, is this the best? Is this the best one? And then I'm like, wow, I couldn't believe it. So I'm just loving it. The archival footage at the beginning is all real footage and stuff, which is really crazy. It's one of those movies where you're watching it, and I don't think it's a big crowd pleasing movie, because you're you almost feel just like the Death Wish, those earlier ones, you almost feel dirty. You walk out of the theater, if you're wow, that was great, you almost feel bad saying that was great, because it's weird. This was the first movie where I felt like I shouldn't be cheering this movie on that much, but I can't help but be caught up in everything that's going on. And the way that Sean said, these people are oh, we're gonna change their lives, and we're gonna go out there and do good. It's guys, this guy's raping boys. He's betting on who's gonna step on a minefield, on a mine. These people do not care. And Rambo says, he goes, they're gonna rape the girl 100 times and then kill her, right? They don't care. It's this is an ugly part, an ugly thing that's going on here, and it's got to show the ugliness. So again, this is the Death Wish part 2 argument again. You got to show me the ugliness if you want me to really be invested. Rambo 3 did not show that. Rambo 3 was still a cool, polished action movie. This one was a hardcore, gritty, realistic, just bloodbath. And you're when that Gatling gun, holy crap. It's disintegrates people, and you're my God, that's a human being that is just being torn to shreds. And I saw this the second time I saw it was with a coworker who loved the Rambo movies, and I think he kind of liked the 2 and 3 Rambo movies, because he walked out of that and he's like, oh, it's okay, that
was a thing.
And I'm yeah, and and he's thinking I'm probably never going to watch this again, and I'm taking a shower when I get home. and I'm I'm getting this on Blu-ray. I gotta get the soundtrack of this thing.
I got both versions.
I got the 2 version release, and I bought it again when they came in a pack, and then I bought it again. I'm dude, this movie's all over the place. So I loved it. So I don't know. I thought it was great.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, that final 20 minutes is it was just incredible. Just the noise of the cannon, and like just whenever he starts shooting, and like you've seen the legs blowing off and everything, and then they blow up the boat that's coming, and it's just so fierce. Absolutely love it. John Jerva, your thoughts on it?
I just agree with everybody else. I mean, like I said, I saw it 3 times in the theater, and I remember the first time I was watching it, I was just like, this is what I mean. I don't think you should feel bad for cheering, like J-Man was saying, because like these people are so horrible. Like they're sticking bayonets and babies and throwing them in fire and everything. So like at the end when this is happening to them, you're just like, fucking A, man. Like,
yeah, they deserve it.
You don't like it. Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, the last 20 minutes, I love the fact that because I was talking to people when it first came out, they're like, "Oh, this movie is going to be so stupid because Rambo needs help now. He's got mercenaries helping him." I'm like, just go see the movie, because these guys come in and they're all badass. And I love Graham McTavish. He's like talking to Rambo, and Rambo's not saying anything. He's like, these guys get in trouble. What do? They send in the devil to do God's work. And Rambo just looks at him like, you're a fucking idiot. You're like, why are you talking to me? And I just love. But he says it with his face, and I just love that scene. But then at the end, like going back to who said it, like then you're like, yeah, this guy's pretty cool, because at the end, because he kind of, I love like when they first see Rambo do his thing with the bow and arrow, and they're like, okay, this guy's more than a boatman, because they're just calling him the boatman. Okay, go back with the boatman. And I can remember seeing it get mad, being like, you guys fucking know who this is? It's like you guys don't understand. And it's like just when he does that, and he's holding the bow right up to his eyeball, and I just love that. I just love that part. But then going back to what I was trying to say, I love at the end because like then they meet him, and then who's there to save the day? It's Rambo. He's like he's of course he has a 50 caliber machine gun. So if you have one of those, plus not only is it a 50 cal, but it's got the bulletproof in front of him, so he's pretty much like indestructible at the end. And that's the part I love. But going back on when you were talking about the director's cut and this cut, for me the director's cut, I kind of was mad at the director's cut because all they really did was they added some more scenes with Julie Benz, like he talks to her a little bit more. But do you guys remember Enju? I love that guy, and I think in the director's cut they took out his balls part, like where he's going through and killing all the people, before he dies, unfortunately. But I think they took that out of the director's cut. I remember buying it and then watching. I'm like, why did he take that part out? And it's like I was so mad when I saw that part was taken out because I like Enju. Like Enju was like, and Schoolboy. I love Schoolboy too. I like Matthew Marsden as Schoolboy because he's just like this. He's like a younger guy. And all these guys are like all hard and stuff like that. But it's like he doesn't. But he is hard, and the way he talks and everything, and what he does with that sniper rifle, and the ending, like the last 20 minutes, it's just going back to number 3 where I said the prison scene. This is probably my second favorite. I just love the prison scene in Rambo 3 just because it's so polished and everything. But this is probably his best fuck yeah moment in a Rambo movie when he gets on that 50 guy. Plus. How can you deny the scene where you see the soldier and then in slow motion you see him come up behind him? His head just kind of come up.
The head, yeah.
That's the part ever, and I think I rewind that part all the time, and I just go back to that part every single time. Well, how can you argue with the guy that rips a throat out? I mean, he freaking rips some guy's throat out in a movie, and Julie Bench is just sitting there watching it. But then it's like, okay, thank you. It's like you rip his throat out for him.
Yeah, that's funny. The other guy, he's like, what?
What's that?
I was saying, yeah, the guy Michael, and he's like, violence is never the answer to anything. And then by the end, he kills the guy with a rock.
He kills the guy.
I don't know. It's like, no, I'm sorry, Michael. Violence is always the answer.
Yeah, he goes back when he kills the guy on the boat in the first part where he kills, and they all get mad at him. I'm like, do you understand what these guys would have done if he didn't do that?
Yeah.
And that part kind of, too. It's like you guys had a soul. Like this is the real world, people.
Yeah, they're so naive that I wouldn't have rescued him. I'd be like, hey, you know what? Fuck off. You can stay there. You don't deserve to be saved because you're stupid enough to go walking into hell.
I think he only went back for her because
Oh, he did.
Here's the thing: Rambo doesn't have friends, but if you earn Rambo's respect, he will go through fire for you. Like the kid in Rambo 3, like and anybody that earns his respect, he will do anything for. And I think the way she talked to him and the way she treated him like a human being, that's why he went back. He didn't give a shit about those other guys. He went back to save her. Yeah,
because she even says to him, she's like, but trying to save a life isn't wasting your life, is it? Will you help me? Because he was like, it's a waste of time or whatever else, because he's just lost all faith in mankind. But like, it's such a tone change. Like, what do you think happened to him between Rambo 3 and that movie?
I would have liked Last Blood to have happened in between.
Well, the world changed, right? Like with Rambo. So we started out with him just being a tool of violence that's deployed at the whim of the military or the government or whatnot. And we get to this point where you see that violence has surpassed everything to the point that no one wants to even acknowledge it anymore. Like those missionaries are there. They don't even want to acknowledge the reality. Rambo's the only person. I think he's, in that time, he's realized that the world has moved on and they've shifted to this thought process that's now, we don't even want to deal with the violence. We don't even want to talk about it. We don't want to acknowledge it. And meanwhile, he's like, it didn't go away. It didn't leave. It's still here. Right? Like, I feel like that's a very smart way of doing it, because you see even now, like people, if they don't like something, they won't acknowledge it. They're just like, cancel this. Right? Like in this sense, they're trying to cancel what is actually taking place in the world. Right? The missionaries are, and when I watched this movie, I hated the missionaries. I absolutely hated them. I want Rambo to kill them all. I want him to do it with the Gatling gun. Julie Benz is there and she's like horrified with what he's doing. And I'm like, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
Like, what are you looking at? Like people like that in real life, I can't stand them. And I can't stand people and I just want horrible things to happen to them because, movies is a wish fulfillment. But I like the fact that it has sort of come to this thing where it's not that we don't want to talk about the man committing the violence. We don't even want to talk about the violence. I think that's really interesting and a really smart way of doing it. And I think that's what happened to him. Honestly, I think that's it. He became cynical and it's earned. Like, look at all the stuff he's been through. If he wasn't cynical by the fourth film, I'd be like, well, this guy's crazy. Like he's nuts.
They abandoned him at the end too. He just saved their lives. And like they still don't care about him because they're just scared of him too.
They're scared of him.
They're just like, this guy's so crazy. I can't hang out with him anymore because he's just too nuts. They're so scared of violence that even the guy that saved them, they're like, well, shit, he's so crazy. Like, No.
I'll catch up on all these comments. I stand with Stephen here. So I love this. This has to be one of the most violent films ever made. He mows down more than the Lawnmower Man. That's a lot of mowing.
That blast shield gets dirtier and dirtier with that.
There's more guts get over it.
I stand with scenario, and I stand with him here too. I don't know. His head did look pretty big.
It did look massive, but when we talk about the iconic moments, I definitely think, as John said, it's the moment of his head coming up in slow motion behind the guy. That was the trailer moment. You're like, oh my God, that's so cool. What does it take to change the essence of a man? That's on Deadly Ground again. So now, Sean, you're right that you said last week that you were shown On Deadly Ground in school.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's for economics or
environmental.
It's like environmental.
What class could it possibly be?
Economics?
Why wasn't I in that school?
Something like that. Yeah, we watched it. That's a true story.
That's the Canadian education system.
Yeah.
How was that lesson? Like, how did it preface it with like?
We were asked questions about like oil and shit like that after that. So it's like
how to deal with
didn't learn anything from the movie,
because that's what the movie was about.
And how to deal with racists by beating them.
Yeah, and like exploiting the land and stuff like that.
Mm.
Really, it's just an excuse sometimes. You know how it was.
Yeah.
You don't know if teachers still do that, but
I mean,
I love how in On Deadly Ground, like it's all about saving the environment and everything, but he doesn't hesitate to throw somebody into helicopter blades at the end and then blow up an oil rig and everything. And you're like, okay.
Yeah, but that literally saved the environment. That action literally saved the environment. So I think it was justified.
I mean, that's a good point. I mean, they showed me in school Amadeus. Like, I get that.
Yeah.
Like,
that's a losery movie compared to.
Well, I remember just as a side thing. I remember J-Man, you were into the Billy Jacks at one point, and showing me one, and they had the "Go Ahead and Hate Your Neighbor" song, and I was like, yeah, in school, in like music class, we would sing that constantly.
Oh my god!
Go ahead and hate your neighbor, or go ahead and cheat your friend, like that.
Yeah.
But it's like such a downbeat song about like screwing over people.
I love Billy Jack. We have to do a Billy Jack.
Yeah, we'll do a Billy Jack one soon. Yeah, because
try rewatching those.
Yeah, I know. I've only ever seen the first one with you, Stephen. So at some point, I'm going to watch them all, and then we'll do a show on that because we haven't done a piece on them on the site. So I thought, well, if we do a chat about them, then it's something new. So also, Stephen also gets. Well, Stephen, you're super popular tonight. Stephen also gets points for the Supernatural shirt.
He's a big Supernatural fan.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then back to Rambo. I never saw the extended cut, but I bought it blindly on Blu-ray, thinking there would be extended violence, but it's confirmation that I made a mistake. Well, it depends. If you're a Rambo fan, then it's never a mistake because it's all different Rambo stuff, and I'm just like, give me it all. It's just like, let's snort all that Rambo goodness. So, but yeah, no, that's like feeling porkiest to discuss.
We watched Ninja 3: The Domination in gym class.
What were you training to ninjas?
I guess so. I couldn't. I already owned it on VHS, so I'm like, yeah, let's watch it for the 100. I've seen that movie. I've seen that movie more times than any other movie, perhaps ever.
I guess there's a lot of gymnastics in the movie.
There is.
He's in it, so
yeah, exactly.
That's the best shit ever to watch. That's the best shit ever to watch Ninja 3 at school, Jake. I mean, I watched Romeo and Juliet for fuck's sake when I went to school.
Oh my god! Well, I like the Olivia Hussey one and the other one. I actually own two. I like that movie. That was one of the first widescreen movies I ever bought.
But I take Ninja 3 over that one any day.
Well, I'll take Ninja 3 over that as well.
Ninja 3 over most things. Let's not pretend here. So back to the topic at hand. So Rambo. So has everybody said their piece about Rambo 4 or John Rambo, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah. So moving on to the red-headed stepchild of the franchise, which is Rambo: Last Blood. Now, this gets a lot of hate from people, and I agree that the movie doesn't need to exist. The way the fourth one ended was perfect. He came home, and we didn't really need to see anything else. And this does feel more like something separate, as we call it, Home Stallone, and it's like meat's taken, and it's kind of like that. But
it's a great Death Wish movie.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, it's Death Wish. It's the
best Death Wish movie we never got. Yeah, I mean, it's both this one and Part 4 though are more horror movies than action movies, really, because the violence is so visceral and disturbing, and both particularly this one where the violence is pornographic that even David Morrell, the author of First Blood, totally renounced this movie. He's just like, this isn't the character I created. I'm washing my hands of this. And I was like, oh, wow, if I was Stallone, I wouldn't have been too pleased at that reaction. But, I mean, I get it. I mean, it is very different. I mean, when you're watching it, it almost doesn't feel like Rambo. He doesn't have the long hair. He doesn't have the headband or anything. But if you watch the alternate cut or the international cut, as it's called, there are more scenes in where he has some PTSD and it shows back to his Vietnam days and things. So, It does in that version feel more like Rambo, but I mean, if you after watching all of them in the past weekend, and you compare Last Blood to First Blood, I mean, it's night and day how different the movies are in terms of tone or whatever else. And like the first one, he doesn't kill anybody. I didn't do anything. I don't want to kill anybody.
I was gonna say like one last thing about part 4 is I felt part 4 was a great sequel to part 1. You can watch part 1 and 4 and they're of the same ilk.
Yes,
I feel.
similar tone. Yeah.
Even though like part 4 is mega bloody, but yeah, no, like 5 is cool. I just don't feel like a guy who's trained at war would do these things against the bad guys or do something different, like wage actual war rather than investigate and do sort of death wish kills on some of the guys and like, you know, do a horror movie beheading on the one guy in his bedroom. It just doesn't seem like but it just doesn't seem like the warfare aspect is there of the character of Rambo. It just, you know, it's cool as an action thing and bloody and all that crap, but like it's not, it doesn't feel like that's how Rambo would bring war to these guys. No. This seems more like he's just stalking them and killing them one by one and kind of like your standard issue Death Wish or Death Wish clone, right?
Mm-hmm. I don't know. He's not even good at stalking them, though. And this was the thing whenever I was watching it the other day. He's like walking down whenever he's in Mexico and he's like walking around the street and he's looking at the guys and sort of like, you know, to the guys. Like, it's like, and then he gets beaten up by them all. And you're like, what did you think was going to happen when you walked in here? And I thought, surely you would have planned this out. Oh, young Rambo, you know, post-Vietnam vet, he would have planned it out and gone underground or something.
As a soldier,
and done it that way. And then,
and arguably he does that at the end, but like, I don't know. It just seems like, and the whole movie seemed like a setup for that ending anyways. It's like, he's got these tunnels. Well, gee, I wonder what's going to happen.
Why does he have tunnels? It's like, why do you have tunnels? It's like, because I'm going to kill lots of people.
Like the traps are cool. The traps are cool. I just, awesome. I don't feel like it's Rambo to me. I don't know. But it's an awesome movie though. Like I hate to say anything bad about it because it's cool. But you know,
I agree with that. Gabriella or whatever. Yeah, fuck her, cow. I like the extended cut better. Yes, because I love that opening scene in the mountains in the storm. Because it just adds that bit that he's struggling to save people, and that's where it goes into the PTSD, where he said, "I couldn't save my brothers, and I couldn't save these people last night." So he's on the medication. And then, like later on, he throws the medication away, and that's why he goes crazy. He'll start killing everybody because he's like, "I've been trying to keep a lid on it. I'm just trying to keep it under control." And whenever she dies, then he's like, "I'm not keeping this under control anymore. Fuck these guys." And then he just, you know, becomes Michael Myers on them, which is really what it is. He becomes like a slasher killer. Like I remember in the theater, someone had a seizure during, I think it was the heart ripping scene. I was like, yes! And this person's like, and I was like, oh, you okay there, buddy? And so he got taken out in a stretcher during it. And I was like, wow. It's like, pussy.
You finished him off in the parking lot, I said.
Yeah. I was like, there's no such thing as too violent. And it was I was like, the fifth movie was fine. It didn't feel like a Rambo movie, but it was entertaining. Okay, Jay, go. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I'm with everybody. Look, it was a cool movie. Watch it, like, wow, there's a lot of violence, but it was Death Wish pretty much. And the thing is, like, I'm looking for Rambo. This is one of these things where I'm looking for the Rambo-isms. I want the headband. I want the long hair. If it's not the long hair, then it's not Rambo. Like, I don't know what it's like, here's a Superman movie, but he doesn't have the costume. He doesn't have the cape. He doesn't, you know, he occasionally flies. It's like, well, it's still a good movie. Well, but now it's not Superman. You know, it's like, this is a really cool movie that's not Rambo. And I think Sean's right. Like, I think if you're getting into the psychology of who Rambo is, it's like, Rambo is going to bring the war to you, and he's going to come and absolutely demolish these people, like grenades and like blowing shit up. It's like setting the traps is cool and all that, but like, he's investigating and like, what is he like? So like, what is he, the Equalizer or something? It's like, it's like he's not. This is not what Rambo does. Like, he should just come in. Like, he should find out where they're at. Like, you know, it's like, this is their base. He storms their base, kills all of them, and then walks off. It's like, I killed everybody. That's it. Like, having the cool, like, evil deaths is interesting, yes, but it doesn't feel like Rambo would do that. Like, Rambo 4, he's just gunning people down. And if they happen to die in gruesome ways that are a little bit extra, then that's cool. But yeah, as a movie, I mean, you know, it's fine, right? It's a better Death Wish than the Death Wish that we got. It's a better action movie than other action movies that came out, you know, around the time. I definitely cheered the bad guy's death. Like I was like, hell yeah, man! Like screw these guys. Like I don't even know. I don't know if I was cheering their death on more than part 4 because like, like,
human traffickers are the lowest forms of life.
Forms. And like the girl, I was actually shocked that the girl died. And maybe I'm just naive in thinking of this.
No,
but like,
she had to. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, I'm like, wow, like she's dead. I'm like, well, this is crazy. I'm like, Rambo. Then you start to think, oh, Rambo's going to destroy these guys. But then it's like, well, that doesn't really happen. He's kind of walking around and figuring stuff out. I'm like, and the end is cool. I don't know. It's a cool movie. It's just weird. This should have been in between 3 and 4 because the ending of 4 is so perfect of him coming home and just being like, look, I'm just going to relax now and just live out my days. If they could have somehow figured out at the end of this, he loses everything. Then he goes into the wilderness. He's like, look, I'm just going to live in the wilderness. I'm done. And then part 4 happens, and then he comes back home. He's like, okay, I'll give it another shot or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the most damning thing is if the cartoon made to sell toys, it feels more like Rambo than this movie, then that's a problem.
Right.
It's like, because that thing, they I mean, we could talk about it a bit later, but like, I mean, you'd figure that wouldn't be really quite Rambo, and it's more Rambo than Rambo 5. So,
yeah. What I liked about it though was even if you don't like it as a Rambo movie, it was just nice to see a super violent, hard R action movie again, which we don't get that many of these days, And it was like good production values, good violent kills. I mean, that heart scene at the end is so. I mean, my dad was like, "That's the most violent thing I've ever seen," and I was like, "Wasn't it awesome?" And he's like, "No, what's wrong with you?" Yeah, and I was like, now, interesting about this one, and I only found this out recently. In early drafts, Teasel was going to be back in it, and he was going to be working with the cartel known as the Judge, and he would have been working with him. And as much as you think that would be a cool idea, and I'm like, it's actually a terrible idea because Teasel was not a villain. He was not a psychopath or anything else. He may be a bullying asshole, but he wasn't evil. And that was, to me, that's just an asinine idea, and I'm really glad that didn't happen. But
is Brian Dennehy still alive?
No, he died a couple of years ago, unfortunately.
So someone else would have played him then.
You would assume.
No, whenever the script was doing the rounds, I think this was going to be maybe a potential Rambo 4 or something years ago. He was still alive at the time, and he was going to come back in. And at the end, Rambo was going to strangle him to death with barbed wire.
Oh my god!
It's
dumb. They should have teamed up. They should have teamed up. That would be cooler. Because now they're like, I know we had our differences, but these guys are real bad. We're gonna team
that would
up
be more interesting.
That was the 80s right there, and that would have worked better, where it was like, okay, no, let's get over our differences and save the day. Because there's another version where he had to rescue the president from a terrorist takeover of Camp David, and I was like, I would have liked that too. That should have been Rambo 4, like in the 90s or something, because we didn't have any Rambo in the 90s, and that bothers me about the 90s. But anyway, John, I know you're like me. You kind of like Last Blood as well. So what are you going to say?
I've taken a beating from people, and I have the unpopular opinion, but this was a Rambo movie for me. And if you read my review, I explain why. This is Rambo now. Like, this isn't Rambo in 1985 where he was running around Vietnam, tearing things up and flying a helicopter. This is Rambo. This is my dad. My dad's like 82. Rambo is 75 now, so this is the next evolution of Rambo. He's got PTSD. All the shit he's been through throughout the years has totally fucked him up. And like you said, he's on pills, and then he decides not to take the pills, and that's what happened. And then at the end, he's back in Vietnam. He goes back to Vietnam, and I wouldn't be surprised if he thinks he's actually killing Viet Cong, like, at the end, because that's how sadistic he is at the end. This is like, and the G-Man was, like, he's going around investigating, but like I said, he's broken down. Like, the one guy just said, it's interesting that you see him take a beating. Yeah, because he's surrounded by like 50 cartel guys. Now, if this was 1985, he would have fucking opened up a can of whoop ass on him. But he's 75. He's broken. He still has skills, don't get me wrong, but I can't stress it enough. he's old. So it's like that's what happens. And I liked it because I think it's like it's hard because I'm gonna be 50 in 2 years. So it's like it's hard to get old, and it's hard to see your heroes get old. And like I said, Stallone still he doesn't have many years left. Don't get like Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford's shooting Indiana Jones 5. He just got injured. He got injured making Star Wars because when you're old, you don't recover as fast as you used
Things
to.
happen. Yeah.
And it's hard to see your heroes like this. And a lot of people say it didn't feel like a Rambo movie to them. It did to me because it resonated with me that way. This is what happened through all of those years of what he did. Yes, was he a one-man killing machine? Yes, he was. But it does something to you. I mean, you can't go. I mean, even though it was cartoony in 2 and 3, you can't go through that stuff and not have it, mess with you. And everybody says that 4 is the perfect ending. It is the perfect ending, but this character is not meant to be happy. At the end of number 4, he goes home. He's happy. At the end of number 5, this is how he's supposed to be. Rambo isn't supposed to have the cookie cutter ending.
He's made for war.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yes, he's made for war. And even though he's pushing 80, that's who he is. And I didn't think the girl was going to die either, but then I thought, of course she did, because she was like a daughter to him. Why should he be happy? Why should he have a daughter? Why should he have somebody to care about? Because it's Rambo. Rambo is a loner, and this is who he is, and this is what has happened to him. So in my regards, I mean, I can't remember what I wrote in my review, but that was like paraphrasing it. But that's how I felt. Like I said, I'm in the minority, but that's how I felt.
Yeah. Well, actually, you brought up an interesting thing that I think would have made the movie a bit more interesting, which is what I would have liked to have seen now that you've mentioned this, is that when he was going around investigating or when he was going around killing those guys, if we saw his perspective, and in his perspective, they were Vietnamese soldiers. Like there's quick flashes of them being, and then with him looking with the headband, like him looking.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
And he's dreaming this up as he's really fighting. And when he's getting beat up by those cartel guys, it's flashbacks to him getting beat up in the POW camps or something. And then just to connect it visually more. Like I'm a visual guy and I need to see Rambo. Like I like getting posters and toys and figurines, and he doesn't look like Rambo. You're right. Maybe this is the old Rambo and this is what's become, but I want him to kind of still see, like I want to be able to visually see a screenshot from the movie and be like, oh yeah, that's Rambo. Oh yeah, that's Death Wish. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't look like Rambo either. I don't know. I wanted the long hair and the headband. I know it's a cheesy thing, but I'm a visual guy. I need to see him as Rambo. But that would have been sick. If he's seeing like Vietnam while he's killing those guys, that would have been awesome.
Yeah, that would have been good.
But that goes back to the first one, because when the cops are beating him up, he's having flashbacks to when the Kong was doing it.
Yeah.
So
it just would have worked better.
I guess Stallone screwed up in that aspect. I mean, I think he should, because he made tunnels underneath where he lived, because that's what made him feel at home, like being in Vietnam, because that's where he operated. So, like at the end, I think he went back to Vietnam. He like his mind switched off, and that's where he went. And like I said, Stallone should have probably done that, J-Man, where when he's going through the cartel members, you see him. Like, and they transform into Viet Cong and stuff like that, because I think it would have had more of an impact. But that's what I just took it as I was watching. And my wife agreed with me, too. I mean, just for whatever it's worth. Because I asked her, I go, what'd you think? And she said the same thing. She's like, yeah, I thought she thinks that, like, her dying, it was the last straw. That was it.
Just snapped. Yeah.
And he wasn't like... He was like, fuck this. I'm not going to be like who people want me to be. I'm going to be who I'm supposed to be.
Well, I think like the thing is that I agree with J-Man. I think the thing is that he was sort of in that uneasy territory where he wanted to say the war was finally over for him. He's home. So that's why he cut his hair and he didn't wear the bandana and all that. Like he was putting his toys away. But at the same time, he has to maniacally still make bunkers. He still needs that aspect of the war around him, even though he's supposedly retired. A couple of things I found interesting about the movie was the fact that for once he was not approached. He had to go and do the action himself. He actually had to drive the action instead of someone coming to him and giving him a mission. He basically had to find his mission. I think that's where the investigating came from. And I think he was beaten up and out of his sorts in Mexico because if you look at all the other movies he has, the terrain is very similar. It's a jungle or it's a hot, dry area. It's a battleground that you associate with a battleground. Where in Mexico, it's more of a city where he's like, I don't know how to navigate this. So he's investigating because it's a new terrain. He's out of his element. I mean, that's why he needed them to come back to his home and his bunker because he needs to fight them on his terrain, not theirs. And I think that's why he struggled in Mexico and that's why he got beaten up.
Yeah, no, the movie makes sense as an evolution of the character. It's just that it evolves into something that's unrecognizable, so that's not the problem.
Yeah, the problem is, and I don't want to bring things in, but it's sort of the same problem I have with the Daniel Craig Bonds, where you're saying, okay, it's realistic. The guy drinks. He's going to have a liver problem. He keeps getting dicked around by the MI5 or something.
But do you want to see that?
Yeah.
Right.
But you don't want to see
the whole movie around that.
You don't want to see that. You don't want to see Indiana Jones get old. You don't necessarily want to see Rambo get old.
Yeah, they're wish fulfillment characters. Yeah.
The struggle, right? I think that's the struggle is you sort of acknowledge that, okay, this makes sense as a logical progression for this character, but I simply don't want to see that. I want Rambo as I remember him from part 2 or part 3 or part 4 even, where he's like the ass-kicking guy with the long hair and bandana. I just think they've wanted to go in a different direction. That's cool, but it's when you do that, it's not going to be for everyone. And there's going to be fans of the series who will not react like favoritively towards this progression, I think.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with people who don't like Last Blood because it's such a different movie from like what's come before, like the earlier movies and whatever. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I get that because, like I said, the violence is like pornographic. I like it, but I'm weird. But I can understand why people wouldn't. But yeah, I still enjoy it despite all its flaws and whatever. Is it the weakest of the franchise? Probably. But it's still a good time. I still watch it all the time. It's funny. I watch 2, 4, and Last Blood the most. Actually, is like I don't watch First Blood or 3 that often, but I would like to watch them more than I do. So moving on to what is the greatest thing to ever come out of Rambo is The Force of Freedom, the cartoon which was mentioned earlier. And none of the movies stand a chance in comparison to this masterpiece of entertainment, where he faces off against General Warhawk. And the bad guy is called Savage, which is a total rip-off of like Spectre. It's like, was it Specialist Administrators of Vengeance, Anarchy, and Global Extortion? How do I get a job with them?
Got written down, boy.
Oh, I do, but I would never remember that. So no, you show us your DVD set there.
It's 6 volumes. Now, what they did was they put random episodes on each disc. So they're out of order, but it's the entire 65 episode run. If you want to buy only one of them, get volume 2. It's the one with all the ninjas in it. So,
well, there's one where he rescues Santa, isn't there, or something?
Yes, but okay. So here's my thing: the cartoon is awesome. It's underrated. People don't talk about it that much. G.I. Joe, when it came out, was syndicated, and they still had to change all the weapons to like
laser pistols,
lasers and crap like this. And they had a lot of fantasy elements, like they would have magic swords, and they would like go back in time and all that stuff. Rambo isn't that. Rambo is the cartoon you want G.I. Joe to be. All the weapons are bullets and missiles with the bullet and missile sound effects and shells popping out. It's the real thing. and all of the stories are mostly like him rescuing ambassadors or defusing an A-bomb, and they mention nuclear weapons. It's not something that's scary that you shouldn't mention, like in G.I. Joe. I wouldn't say it's realistic, but it's more grounded. And Santa thing, any other cartoon would have him rescuing real Santa, but it's really a friend of his who's an ex rocket scientist, and he's making toys for underprivileged kids. He looks like Santa Claus, right? I think his name is like Christopher, like Kringle or something stupid, like, and so Savage wants to kidnap him to make rockets for them, right? And so Rambo goes in. You know the drill, right? But that's the Christmas episode. That's the kind of cartoon this was. I remember this was syndicated, so it was on a weird channel here in Canada. I think it was like CTV or something. It wasn't like an American a network. And I remember it was on 8 a.m. one Saturday morning. I was like, I saw it in the TV guide, like, they made a Rambo cartoon, so I had to watch it, right? And it's got that opening where it's the gearing up sequence from First Blood Part 2 with the music like that.
Yeah.
And then he puts on the bandana, and then the Rambo thing comes in, and there's like fire and shit in the
that's Rambo right there.
Like Rambo. And then I was like, oh my god, this is awesome. And like at one point in that episode, he jumps from him and a bunch of other guys skydive like with these big parachutes. His parachute fails and he's free falling, and the other army guys are trying to help him. They're like, grab my hand, and he can't, right? And then he jumps onto one guy's parachute, and that's how he survives, which is bullshit, but it's awesome. The whole thing was awesome sequences like that. It's so cool. If you want to get like a few of these and just like watch one every day after work, you'll feel satisfied, man. It's awesome. I think it's a great cartoon. I don't know why people like make fun of it. James Avery was Turbo in it, like the token black guy. Like he had a helmet that shot missiles, which is implausible, right? But yeah, no, the toys were wicked. They were big things. They were like the Sectars type of design. Yeah. I had probably the Rambo that a lot of people had, the one with the rocket firing, and I would make that thing work continuously. I'd wind it back and I'd watch it go again, and wind it back, watch it go again, and right into his hand. The handle would go right into his hand. And he came with another gun that shot missiles. And I remember my dad making fun of it, going, the recoil would rip his arm off. And I'm like, I don't care about physics, man. It's like one arm is holding a rocket firing gun and the other one's holding a fucking fire thing, you know? Yeah, that was awesome. I never had the movie one, which was the shirtless one. I had the one that was the Force of Freedom one. Later on, the toy line outlasted the cartoon, and they released more. And then later on, they just released Rambo toys, which was the lettering from the movies and graphics from Part 2. And I remember I had a role play one, which was a holster with a gun. The gun was pretty cool. It had a compass, it had the knife, all that stuff. So yeah, Rambo, as I said before, Rambo between Part 2 and the release of Part 3. Was big business for kids. Like that big wheel bike. I remember the commercials for that, where the kids riding this bike around, and then he sees some kids and he shoots the missile. And I remember the song is like, "No, you've got them right in your own sight, fighting for justice, fighting for right." And he shoots these kids in like a sandbox or something. Like, that commercial was ubiquitous. I can't find it anymore. Anyway, yeah, I love the cartoon. And I think you're a big fan of the cartoon. I love it. The toys, I think we all have. If you're of a certain age, Rambo was big business for kids.
I wanted to say about the toys, like the reason they're so big is firstly to show Rambo's bigger than everybody else, but also you got a lot of accessories that were actually really awesome, like the knife, and it fits in. And that one that you're talking about, the hoodie, he literally has like missiles. You can like store them on the
missiles
belt.
are on his belt,
right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, you didn't get that, right? Like I loved He-Man. Masters is my favorite, but like, you know, you get a sword and a shield or something, or you get an axe. But like Rambo came with a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's very difficult to find loose, complete Rambo because people would lose those accessories. But the thing is, you got a lot for the money you're spending. I don't know what the average figure costs you, but let's say it's the price of like a He-Man or a G.I. Joe price point, maybe a little bit more because it's bigger. But you got a lot more. It seemed like you got a lot more stuff, and the vehicles and everything. It's like we're crazy. Like look up on YouTube. Like look up on YouTube. You're like, this is like crazy stuff, and it's Rambo. And it's not just like a lame toy. It survived.
There was
and that thing still worked. Like my missile thing still worked to like we're talking like a couple of years ago, pulled that out of the storage and it's like it still works.
Yeah.
Good quality.
And that tower, that was the Savage base, but you could double that for any scene from Rambo 2 or 3. It was awesome, especially 2. Yeah.
And you could buy multiples. Because the problem with G.I. Joe is that when each vehicle became so futuristic, if you had a bunch of them, it seemed weird. But when it's a regular military vehicle, you can buy multiple vehicles and you can have like literally a war on your hands in your bedroom, right? You'd have like, holy shit, there's fucking tanks and shit. Like, I don't know, man. Like this toy line's crazy. They're never making this ever again.
No,
like if you've got those toys, like cherish them. They're never making that again.
Yeah, this was the golden era whenever R-rated movies would inspire children's cartoons and things like that, which we don't get anymore, like RoboCop and things which we discussed before. But I always thought I would have loved to have seen General Warhawk done in live action. Like it would have been cool to actually do like a live action version. And I was like, is it Kat? She was like a master of disguise.
Kat
master of disguise.
Yeah, she was well after the woman from part 2. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you're like, well, Rambo doesn't have friends. Who are these people? Sort of the thing. But
they still got to sell toys. That's
but that was the thing. I mean, those were awesome. Toys. Yeah. I mean, when I was growing up, I mean, kids these days, they watch like the Marvel movies or Pixar and things like that. First Blood is what I watched all the time when I was growing up. It was like First Blood,
Indiana Jones. Kids.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And it's funny, Severio was here because this was actually going to be the next thing I was going to ask. What about the Rambo Nintendo game? My friends and I freaked out when Troutman said, "Get your ass out" at the beginning of the game.
What I love about the Rambo game is the fact that they give you an option to go on the mission and you can pick no. But then you can't play the game. So
I'm going to set this one up.
And there was some sort of glitch at the end where, like, if you did something, you would shoot like Chinese symbols at a frog or something. Like it was weird.
I don't remember that in any of the movies.
Yeah, it was weird. But I just love the fact that they gave the chance to go on a mission. You could pick no. I'm like, what game are you playing?
No, I'm not going to go on that. Rambo 3 on Genesis.
Yes, that was the best
one. The damn best. There was different versions of play. Plus, you got to use the bow and arrow, man. And it was like a.
And aren't you like shooting at that? You see behind him, and he's shooting at the helicopter and stuff.
Yeah. But then there's different angles. There's only like 4 or 5 missions, but the thing with that is that each mission was completely different. And once you end the game, you could just replay it again because it was so much fun and it was short. Now games are like 5 hours to end or something. You're like, when am I ever going to play this?
Yeah, I don't have to have a job.
Yeah. I say, sorry, I've got to go to work. But Rambo 3 Genesis was like almost the perfect game. All the action bits, it was the movie kind of, enough to justify the game, and it had replay value.
Yeah. And then just a couple of years ago, there was a Rambo game for the Xbox or something. It was apparently terrible. I never got to play it. I just sort of saw clips to it. I thought it looked cool, but everyone said it was crap. Did anybody ever play it?
No. I do like, though, in the last Mortal Kombat, as one of the DLC packs, they had Rambo and they had Stallone voice him.
Yeah. And then didn't have Arnie as a Terminator as well?
No, Arnie didn't do the Terminator, but this is weird. He apparently approved a guy who impersonated him.
Yeah.
So, but it wasn't Arnie.
Commodore 64, that was my shit growing up. I absolutely love that. Yeah.
All right, guys, I have to actually get going. I'm sorry. I love all the Rambo stuff, but I've got an early day tomorrow. I've got to start doing some teardowns.
Yeah,
that's okay. I was just about to wrap it up anyway. So,
you're just about to wrap it up? Okay.
Yep. So we'll just finish up now. thank you everybody for joining in tonight. Anyway, it was a great chat and talking about one of the all-time great action franchises. So thank you everybody for taking part. So I think maybe next week will be the Expendables franchise. Will we do that next week or a week after? Because I'm also going to do one on Time Cop and Time Cop 2. I just watched Time Cop 2 the other day for the first time. That movie's awesome. Surprisingly good. But anyway, yeah, Thomas Ian Griffith and Jason Scott Lee. That was good. So we'll do that. But anyway, so thanks, guys, and we'll hopefully see you next week. And we'll just finish off with this, I guess.
It's over, Johnny. It's over! Nothing is over! Nothing! You just don't turn it off!